If you are watching this video, you're probably into guns. There's also a pretty good chance you are from Switzerland and are either an active or former member of the Swiss Armed Forces. If that is the case for you, this episode of the Rifleman's Corner is perfect for you, because today we're gonna take a look at the principle of the Swiss Rifleman. The term rifleman I will use to describe men and women who fulfill at least the following requirements. A rifleman owns and trains with a capable modern assault rifle. A rifleman owns and trains with gear suitable for basic infantry tasks. A rifleman has an understanding of basic infantry skills like fire and maneuver, fieldcraft, land nav, etc. A rifleman is or was part of the Swiss Armed Forces or has close relationships to them through friends and family. A rifleman is capable and ready to fight alongside the Swiss Armed Forces to safeguard the lives, liberty and way of life of the Swiss people. For some of you, especially the viewers from the US, it might seem weird that I consider a major part of the principle of the rifleman to be them being either active or form parts of the military, or for them to be able to work together with the Swiss Armed Forces. But that principle of the rifleman actually has its root in the history of Switzerland. The last time the military was fully mobilized was during the Second World War. At that time, the military was divided into three age groups. We had first the Auszug with the ages of 20 to 36, the Landwehr with the ages of 37 to 48, and the Landsturm with the ages 49 to 60. The Auszug was the regular army, fresh from the training with the most modern kit, and their frontline units having the most difficult combat tasks. The Landwehr was still considered a combat capable group, but to a little bit lesser degree. Landwehr units were most often in territorial units, and their task was to hold off broken through enemy forces or enemy airborne troops until troops from the main army from the Auszug have time to organize a counterattack. Some non-combat jobs were also performed by units who were a mix of Auszug and Landwehr, but most combat troops were divided in those age groups. Now the third age group, the Landsturm, they were basically the old men with the beards and the outdated rifles. Their task was mostly either logistical or to guard a post office or some very minor supportive tasks like that. Now, if we look at the current day and all the conflicts going on, we can hopefully all agree that 120,000 men are not nearly enough to defend Switzerland if it would be necessary. What would need to happen? The military would need to grow and grow fast. What would be the easiest way to do that? Well, that would be to recall the Landwehr, or if necessary, even the Landsturm. But let's just say the Landwehr. Meaning that if you are done with your service days right now, have returned all your kit you couldn't keep to the military, and something were to happen, the Landwehr would be called up, you would need to return to the military, get your shit, and then the Landwehr units would be able to at least provide security for units that are not capable of doing that themselves, medical units, logistical units, or even do light supportive tasks in combat operation, supporting armored units or supporting infantry units in their tasks. But if we see how the Swiss government is incapable of spending even 1% of the annual budget on defense, there's no way that you get anything else than a salty shell-out Sturmgewehr 90, 2 magazines, and perhaps a belt pouch. So if we want the Landwehr to actually work, it needs the rifleman to be prepared beforehand, to have his own guns and his own gear, but also we need the rifleman to be capable of working within the SOPs and the doctrine of the Swiss military. So having the equivalent of the Minutemen or the concerned citizen in the US grabbing your ruck, bugging out into the hills, it is not an option for the rifleman in Switzerland. First off, there's literally no way to go. Switzerland is way too small. There's no way you can bug out to. There's literally everywhere you go, there's people. So you're kind of fucked for that option anyway. But if you have guns, if you want to do something in that direction of the US Minutemen or whatever, then the only realistic option of preparing yourself is to be a rifleman and be ready to work within the doctrine and the SOPs of the Swiss military. How can you prepare yourself to be or become a rifleman? Well, first off, of course, you can get good guns, good gear. What exactly you need or what I would recommend for something like that, that will be a topic for the next 2 episodes of the Rifleman's Corner. So for now, let's see what else you can do, how you can prepare yourself as a person, as a human being for that. And that's mostly through training. Obviously, the first thing is your physical condition, your personal fitness. We don't need to go deeper into that. There's people who are way more knowledgeable about your fitness. Well, I mean, go to the gym, go running, I suppose. Now, something very important, but luckily also very easy thing to train would be marksmanship. What I would recommend to anyone is to hit the 300 meter range, grab your iron-sighted rifle and start training 300 meter target shooting. Now, I know it's not very exciting, it's not super tactical, but beating those basics of marksmanship into your system will help you make good hits faster under stress. If you are out of breath, high pulse, just mental stress, the basics of marksmanship is what you fall back to, and if that's ingrained into your system, it's going to be way easier for you. What would also be a good option would be to start shooting dynamic shooting sports. In Switzerland, that would at the moment mostly be IPSC, although unfortunately that's a little bit more difficult. There's just relatively few clubs that actually do shoot IPSC, and it's sometimes relatively difficult to get into those clubs because they have a limited amount of members that they allow to shoot. So if you can get into such a club, that would be a great option. Now, the best option to train the marksmanship for the rifleman, in my opinion, would be something like the Finnish SRA, Shooting Sports for Reservists organization. It's basically like IPSC or IDPA, but it motivates people, or it allows people to shoot in the full combat loadout, meaning plate carrier, helmets, backpacks, and their rifles with their handguns. So that would be the ideal thing to train on. Unfortunately, right now, that's not quite yet a thing in Switzerland, but lucky for you, I actually do organize the first SRA shooting event in Switzerland. So if you are a member of the Swiss Armed Forces and are trained at least on the rifle, check out the link in the description where you can go and join the shooting match. Now, there are some people who offer like tactical shooting courses, CQB courses, all that stuff in Switzerland. I would be very careful with those. It's super hard to vet those instructors to make sure their background is actually what they claim it to be. And most often they are super expensive and don't really cover anything that aligns with the SOPs or the doctrine of the Swiss military. So they are expensive, and if you want to prepare yourself as a rifleman, you're not really gonna benefit much from those courses anyway. So I personally would advise you against it, but I mean, it's your money, do with it what you wish. But if you want to learn or train CQB, fire maneuver, fieldcraft, whatever, there is actually a very viable option for you. That's also way cheaper than any of those private instructors. And that would be training with Swiss Army associations, be that officer or NCO associations. There are many different associations in all parts of Switzerland that offer training events for all kinds of topics. They are mostly based on the SOPs and the doctrine of the Swiss military. So that would be the best use of training time and money for the Swiss Rifleman. I will link one of those associations I mostly work with. I would implore you to make you do your own research, check out the associations that are closest to you and see what they offer if you want to go there. Now, if you want to prepare yourself as a rifleman, I would recommend you to check out your local NCO associations, check what they offer. There's what I can recommend are CQB courses, live fire exercises, as well as night patrol exercises. Those are always great fun and a great way to learn some skills that are otherwise very hard to obtain. So we are taking a look at what a rifleman is, why riflemen are important, and how you can prepare yourself to be a rifleman. The next thing we will have to take a look at is what kind of gear you need to be a rifleman or for those courses, and how you can prepare your rifle or what your rifle needs to be able to do. But that will be a topic for the next episode of the Rifleman's Corner. Thank you very much for watching this episode of the Rifleman's Corner. Please like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this, I hope to see you again sometimes in the next Rifleman's Corner or maybe in a match video. Bye.